And that's one of the things that I think a lot of times boys need is not just exposure to one guy.
One dad.
One dad. No matter how good the dad
is. He can't be everything.
He can't be everything. And then that boy may need somebody to give the boy some perspective on the dad.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
One of the most valuable things I learned as a guy was I had a gay professor in college at a time when openly gay folks still weren't out of line, who became one of my favorite professors and was a great guy and would call me out when I started saying stuff that was ignorant. You need that to show empathy and kindness. And by the way, you need that person in your friend group so that if you then have a boy who's gay or not.
This isn't just about kindness. This isn't just about empathy. There's a calculated effort here to change how your sons think. And this is about taking apart the traditional family and one subtle suggestion at a time. And it's coming from some of the most influential people in the world. So let's break down what the Obamas are really saying. It all starts so reasonably, doesn't it? Barack and Michelle Obama sitting down for her, in my opinion, podcast with her brother Craig Robertson, having a thoughtful chat about raising boys, as you guys heard. And the topic was how to raise emotionally intelligent young men. And that sounds great, but that soft therapeutic language can be used as camouflage, masking what can be seen as an attack on the nuclear family, traditional values, and the concept of masculinity itself. And they present it as just a heartfelt personal story, but if you listen closely to the words they choose in the narrative they're building, you might see a different agenda. And the Obamas frame this as a lesson in kindness, but the message that comes through is that their traditional father figure isn't enough on his own. In fact, he might even be part of the problem. The idea that a father's influence needs to be diluted by a progressive worldview or a more progressive worldview, are they suggesting your son's mind is a space that needs to be occupied by the ideology? So let's get it right into the text, right? Because this is where the slate of hand happens. Barack Obama, talking about the need of other role models, says no matter how good the dad is, he can't be everything. Now, on the surface, who would argue with that? Of course, a community is important. Of course, coaches, uncles, family, friends matters. I have phenomenal coaches, but that's not really the point he seems to be making. Look at the framing. He doesn't say a father is essential foundation, complemented by others. He starts by pointing out a supposed limitation. He's creating a deficit. He's telling you right off the bat that a father is insufficient. And it plants a seed of doubt, not just for the son, but for the parents themselves. And the message feels like you, dad, are not enough. From there, he says that a boy may need somebody to give the boy some perspective on the dad. Let that sink in for a minute. Not perspective on life, not perspective on hard work or character, perspective on the dad. And this reframes the father from a source of guidance to an object of critique. The mentor's job in this view isn't to build up the boy's character, but to teach the boy how to deconstruct his own father. And who is the ideal person to give this perspective? According to Obama, it was his gay professor at Occidental College. Obama says this professor was one of his favorites, right? And he said they would call him out when I started saying stuff that was ignorant. Again, listen to the language. But let's continue.
Non-binary or what have you, they have somebody that they can go, okay, I'm not alone in this.
Yeah.
Right? So that, I think, is creating that community. I know it's corny, but that's what they need.
And we talk.
All right. So the mentor's main value is framed as an ideological correction. And then comes the core of his argument. Obama says you need that to show empathy and kindness. You need that to show empathy and kindness. And I really want to coin in on that because it's presented as not as a helpful suggestion, but a requirement. And this brings us to the big question. Why is a gay professor the specific example used to unlock empathy? Why not a combat veteran, a successful entrepreneur, a pastor, or a man happily married for 50 years? The answer seems clear to me. For them, this isn't just about mentorship, it's about promoting a specific political, social ideology. And identity appears to be the qualification. The goal seems not to be about teaching a boy how to be a good man, but how to be a good progressive. And it feels like they're deliberately skipping over every other kind of positive male mentorship to land on the one that best fits a political agenda. Now we have to talk about the word empathy. For the last decade, empathy has been weaponized by some to mean something entirely different. As we know that we're in this age where words are being remixed to not actually mean the original word, the original definition in this context, but it becomes a Trojan horse. In the new progressive dictionary, empathy doesn't just mean understanding another person's feelings. It often means agreement and affirmation of their worldview without question. And when Obama says your son needs this kind of mentor to learn empathy and kindness, he seems to mean that your son needs to be taught to agree and affirm a progressive framework for viewing the world. He's talking about a very specific kind of empathy, one that may require rejecting traditional masculine virtues. Things like stoicism, strength, and self reliance gets recategorized as toxic or ignorant. And the kindness they talk about seems to be a selective kindness, extended only to those who follow the new rules with little room for traditional beliefs. This isn't some one-off comment on a podcast. It fits perfectly into a long-running campaign to redefine traditional masculinity by labeling it as a flawed and insufficient. And they're telling parents straight up that your values are failing your children. Your love and guidance aren't enough. And the only way to save your son from ignorance of his own upbringing and from the supposed problem of his own father is to outsource his moral development to an ideologically approved expert. They seem to want to replace the father's authority with the authority of credentialed, ideologically pure expert. So this feels like a direct assault on the family. It's subtle and it's wrapped in soft language, but it's an assault all the same. If you're tired of seeing these core institutions get undermined from every angle. And if you believe in power and importance of strong father, then you're in the right place. Hit the subscribe button, click the like, and join the community that isn't afraid to define traditional values. And let's connect the dots for a minute, right? Because this isn't just a personal story about a Professor Obama admired decades ago. He's told this story before. It's a narrative that has been carefully packaged and being used for now for a reason. The whole conversation started with a listener asking how to raise boys in an era where they're constantly told something is wrong with them. And what's the answer from the former president? It's not to build them up, affirm their strength, or champion positive masculinity. No, the answer is to suggest they need to be fixed by an outside progressive influence. And this point to a larger agenda, the managed decline of masculine strength and the weakening of a father and son bond. A strong, confident man who trusts his own judgment and the values from his father is a threat to a top-down power structure. A man who looks to his father and heritage for his identity isn't easily controlled. But a boy taught from a young age that his father is flawed, his instincts are ignorant, and enlightenment comes from an affirming political ideology. And that becomes a much more compliant citizen, put it that way, when I think about it, because they seem to want to undefine masculinity. And as some of their allies openly say, they want to create a generation of soft men who won't stand up, won't defend, and won't lead. And I'm not saying you got to walk around big old bad, I'll beat you up. I'm not talking about none of that. I'm talking about your morals. Your character is what keeps you, right? You can get all the success in the world, but if you don't stand for something, you fall for anything. How many people has succumbed to the very temptation that they were tempted constantly, and then they end up going into that temptation and lost everything? Not having self-control, not understanding that life is 90% of how you respond to it and 10% about what happens to you. So when I mean by um masculinity, true masculinity is the one that is a leader and understanding making the hard decisions, and it's bigger than them, not just for them, but it's for their kids, their family. And the simple fact is that they want to make an impact in the world and lead this world better off than when they came into it. That's what I mean by not being a soft man, just to clarify. But they're creating a vacuum of strong they're creating a vacuum of strong male leadership, and they plan to fill it with their ideology. And they'll tell you the community should raise your child, but they get to define the community and its values. And it's a classic bait and switch. They offer community but deliver committee. Think about the audacity here. For years, we heard leaders, including Obama himself, correctly identify the crisis of fatherlessness in this country. And he's giving speeches about the need for fathers to be present and responsible. And yet, now, with a chance to champion the irreplaceable role of a good father, his answer is highlighting to finding a mentor to provide perspective on him. It's a stunning reversal. It feels like a betrayal of his own previous incorrect analysis. And he acknowledges a crisis in fatherhood and then offers a solution that seems to undermine it even more. So, no, this doesn't sound like it's about raising empathetic men. It's about raising compliant men. Men who won't question the new cultural orthodoxy. Men taught to see their fathers not as role models, but as case studies in what to reject. Men who are told the only path to being a good man is to disvalue the very traits that have been defined honorable masculinity for centuries. They can wrap it in the language of empathy, diversity, and inclusion all they want, but at its core, this looks like a radical social engineering project, and it aims to chip away at the sacred bond between father and son and replace it with loyalty to a political agenda. The most important mentor for a son is a strong, present, and loving father. Full stop, no agenda, no ideology, and no former president should convince you otherwise. So, what do you think, family? Am I right on this, or am I missing something? Is a father's guidance truly no longer enough in the modern world? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you believe in protecting the family and traditional values, make sure you subscribe. We have to keep speaking the truth. Catch you guys next time. Peace.